right, no new trades in a while. Oh, hey guys, how you doing? Gene Berardelli, Ross Galloway, we are behind enemy lines. What's going on, pal? I'm keeping an eye on the Major League Baseball trade deadline at the same time that I'm trying to do this show here. But anyway, what's going on? How you doing?
So what is that exactly? The Major League trade deadline. So that's all happening tonight. Is that what it is? I lost interest in sports ever since a while ago.
Okay, so basically, there is a deadline in Major League Baseball where you have to, if you want players from another team to make it for, let's say, your playoff roster, you have to make certain trades by July 31st at 6 p.m. So there's usually a flurry of activity 24 hours before that with different teams making moves. So those are the moves I'm looking for right now, and we'll see what happens.
Quick question. Are any of those guys going to pay your rent? Or
easy there, Chaz Palminteri. I don't need Mickey Mantle to pay my rent. All right. But I'm happy to give them some money when they do good and I go see them and enjoy a few cold ones and hanging out and enjoying the summer air at Citi Field. Well, you don't like that?
You should be giving me money and paying to watch me work.
What fun is that? Listen, if I could come to your work and scream obscenities at you during your work time and tell you how shitty you're doing and be able to tell you that you should have done what I said to do, you'll let me do all that? I'll pay to do that. Why not?
You know my past. I've had more than a few jobs where that was completely acceptable behavior.
Indeed. I wouldn't mind doing it. So as people are rolling in, Rick saying hi, Coffee Grinder saying hi, all of our regulars are coming in. This is pretty cool. Just want to remind everybody to please, while you're here, thanks for showing up. Be sure to leave a like wherever you're watching, whether it be on YouTube, on Rumble, on X, where we are live on all three platforms. And just that will let everybody know, especially those who run the algorithms, that you like what you're seeing. And maybe they can share it out to more people. I don't know. Maybe you can throw it our way. It doesn't really cost you anything. It's not like Ross Galloway is telling you to pay him to watch him work. So it's a little something.
The grift never ends with Eugene. Never.
It can't end with me. Oh, see, okay. See, like to see this? Hey, Cosmic Bart, I see two good-looking men on my screen looking at the Reagan and Trump posters. There you go. See? There you go, right there. Two good-looking guys. Good stuff. Welcome, Bart. Good to see you, pal. So I actually did show prep. It was a little bit of work. Galloway had little to no input whatsoever other than to say, whatever you're doing, Gene, is good by me. And I thought maybe we would take a moment, given that we've had a lot of news recently concerning the media. And by the media, I don't just mean news media. I mean all types of media. We're seeing it in movies. We're seeing it in television, comedy, late night stuff, and of course print media and the cable news media. We're seeing a lot of people screwing it up. A lot of people who want you to trust them, showing you that you can't hate media enough these days. Time after time after time, they are pushing a leftist agenda. And we have so many examples to show you just from the past week alone.
I mean, I can't wait because I was asking Gene before the show to share some of this with me, and he's like, no. So I try to do show prep. Gene doesn't let me. So we're all just going to be surprised together, I guess.
Well, there are some genuine examples of all this that we can certainly get to. Let's start with traditional media. Let's talk about, cable news media. We put out a short video yesterday here at Buffoon of the Week on YouTube, on X, on Parler, on a bunch of different Instagram getter. Kind of caused a little bit of a stir. We got a few thousand viewers on it that I'm very proud of. Talking about the coverage by CNN of the mass shooting event that happened in Manhattan. Now, we're not going to really be talking about the news of it itself, I think you can find a very fair and balanced reporting of what happened there. And the rest of it is the usual hand-wringing about gun control laws and things like that. And that's pretty much par for the course. It's sort of like a rinse and repeat thing that is done here. But I want to talk about the in real-time coverage from CNN concerning the identity of the shooter. Before we get to that, just another reminder, if you guys want to chat with us, we have an open chat. You don't necessarily need to do a super chat to catch our attention. I'm monitoring it all the time. We're still small enough where we can do that. And you can chime in, give us your input on whatever we're talking about. If you want to derail us and pull a Galloway, you can certainly do that as well. But right now we're going to start with this CNN coverage. This was the initial reporting from, I think it's Caitlin Collins and John Miller, I think, from CNN, talking about what this shooter looked like. A basic witness report of what the shooter looked like. Let's get to this first clip here.
They do not know who he is. They know he is a male, possibly white. He's wearing sunglasses. He appears to have a mustache. And that picture has been distributed to every police officer in New York City, particularly has been sent to the phones of the search teams inside that building, because whenever they encounter a group of people, the first thing they have to figure out is that individual among these people hiding among victims or pretending to be an office worker? Because one thing you don't want to have happen is to have this kind of cordon where you're trying to evacuate people in groups as you can get them to a safe corridor and have this person slip out with them. So yes, they have the picture and they have distributed to everybody on the scene.
Okay, and that's all fair enough. John Miller, for those of you who don't know, used to be a reporter for NBC locally here in the People's Republic of New York, then went on to become a spokesperson for the NYPD, and now he works at CNN. Ross, I know you have a little bit of a law enforcement background. What is the point of saying possibly white? Doesn't that also mean he could be possibly brown, possibly Asian, possibly pretty much anything?
Yeah, I mean, normally I would have no problem with them giving a description and utilizing race, because I think that makes the most sense. But like, a question popped in my head as I was watching this in real time and just now again today. Have you ever heard them say about any criminal where they weren't sure that he's possibly black? Like, I've never heard that used, right? But it rolled right off of CNN and their guest lips or tongue, possibly white. Like, that side of the aisle is obsessed with race, and they accuse everyone of being racist. Here's the other thing, Gene, and this has nothing to do with my own background. It's just common sense. And if you don't believe me, if you're watching this, you can look it up. Most mass shooters in this country are actually not white, right? I know, like, white guys get the name for doing the mass shootings, and they're always the school shooter, the weird guy with the trench coat. But when you actually look at the stats, and the FBI publishes this, most mass shooting suspects are actually non-white. Why? Because in places like Chicago, Detroit, New York, Philadelphia, Newark, right, where all the gangbangers are shooting people up, most of the time there's more than one victim in these shootings, and the suspect is not possibly white. He's usually not white.
Right, and I get that. And you mentioned that they're obsessed with race. But if they're conveying news that the NYPD is getting, what is the point of saying possibly in that? Why don't they just say appears, light-skinned? So that way you're covered about white, black, Hispanic. So that way you're not making any assumptions. Because if I hear possibly white, just naturally, if I'm a law enforcement officer, doesn't that limit my focus of observing only certain people and letting other people kind of filter through my net?
But the better question, Gene, is where, I mean, you could say possibly light-skinned, right? But when the picture of him walking with that rifle was put out there, no one thought he was possibly white, right? So where did they get this description from, right? Like which person in CNN headquarters or one of their guests' houses said that the guy was possibly white, right? Because they thought he was probably white is really why they said possibly white. But any picture you see of this guy, there's no mistaking. He's not a white guy, period. Even with the sunglasses, that is not a white guy.
Let me take the banner off so that way, everybody gets a fresh view, and I don't want anybody accusing me of covering
now,
it
who
up.
would see that picture, Gene, and say that's possibly a white guy? If anything, I would say it's possibly a black or Asian guy, right? It looks more likely to be one of them.
Or just say light-skinned.
Yeah, either way, this is not denigrating white, Hispanic, black or Asian. It's just a more descriptive term. But to throw out there it's a possible white guy, that makes clearly no sense, right? Like none. This guy is not possibly white.
Well, in CNN's defense, he is wearing a polo.
Brilliant.
Thanks, Corn Pop, for that.
You know what? I'm convinced he is possibly a white guy now.
Well, there you go.
If he was wearing Crocs, I'd be convinced.
Marcos, my 14-year-old nephew, loves wearing Crocs. Thinks they're the most comfortable thing in the world.
Stop that now, James. Stop it.
I'm trying. After information about the shooter's name ended up being Shane Tamura came out and was released to the public, CNN then described Tamura this way.
What we have learned is police have tentatively identified the gunman as a 27-year-old man from Las Vegas, Nevada. Preliminary checks based on his name, his date of birth, don't show any significant criminal background. Still an open question.
I gotta pause. I just got in trouble. Sorry, Linda. But listen, if I don't take any corrective measure about the Crocs, no one else will. And
for those of them who don't know, that's Jean's sister. She is a liberal. So if your nephew is wearing the liberal footwear known as Crocs, then that seems like it makes sense.
Well, I'm going to leave it at that.
That's like the combat boot for the left.
You know what? Okay. Just so we refocus, I just want to go back to the beginning of this description. Just listen to it again.
So what we have learned is police have tentatively identified the gunman as a 27-year-old man from Las Vegas, Nevada.
Because everybody from Las Vegas looks like that. That's how you know. Oh, yeah. Las Vegas. Got it. Sure. All of a sudden, we're not, as you said before, quote unquote, obsessed with race. Why not?
Well, I think Corn Pop dropped something in the chat earlier, right? When there is no description, that is the description. So, and that's a good rule of thumb. Whenever CNN or any lefty channel is describing a suspect or failing to describe a suspect, then you already know what the description most likely is.
Yeah, okay, I get that. But if we're giving all these specs about him, like it came out that he had a concealed carry permit. It came out that he was from Las Vegas. He played football. It turns out he may have had a history of concussions and CTE. He may have been mentally unstable. Whatever all that comes out, and that's certainly pertinent. But now all of a sudden, the possibly white thing, which was so important before, the race is just poof gone. When did it? Is it because he turned out to not be white? The possibility ended, and they just don't want to admit that was their mistake.
Well, I also think because if you remember, as the story was breaking, they kind of knew right away that one of the victims was a police officer. He happened to be working a second job in his police uniform, oddly enough. We can get into that in a minute. But they kind of knew who he was right away. And it would have much better fit their narrative if a possible white mass shooter with an assault rifle killed a minority police officer who was working a second job to feed his family. It would have worked out much better that way. When it turned out that the guy was not white, the suspect, the Then we stopped hearing about the rest of the victims, right? We only know about the police officer. We know nothing about the other 4 people that were shot and killed, right? Like, I want to know about the rest of them now, right? What was his motivation? They're claiming it was the NFL and CTE. The guy never played football other than maybe in high school, right? I find that story hard to believe too.
Well, I don't know what the story is, and I'm willing to see the evidence on that. I'm willing to keep an open mind about that. I'm just so frustrated with CNN running to a narrative before all facts are known. And then when that narrative is debunked, dropping it without acknowledging it. Should John Miller now not be allowed to go on the airwaves and talk about these things if he is giving bad information? Or is this a situation where he's a victim of real-time information going out? Because there are some reports that the description given to NYPD wasn't necessarily that he was quote-unquote possibly white. It was that he was possibly Middle Eastern, I heard at one point.
Yeah, and Gene, it's very easy. All can be forgiven. Why didn't he come right back on in the next segment and say, I know I said he was possibly white, and I got that from a source. It turns out that he's not white. He looks fill in the blank, right? Like, I don't know what he is, right? But he didn't say that. He just like memory hold it like he never said it because it's just so normal for them to say stupid things like that.
Yeah, it's this whole idea of the infallibility of media hacks. They want your trust, but they don't want to earn your trust. And earning your trust is sort of half the battle here. If a reporter would go and say, initial reporting coming from NYPD sources said that the description of the shooter was light-skinned, I don't think anyone would have disagreed with that upon seeing the photo. But they went to possibly white, and those specific words, I think, were chosen for a reason. And I think it was to fit with CNN's narrative of white mass shooters. That, to me, is the unforgivable sin that media is doing right now, and why I'm saying you can't hate media enough this week. They made a conscious decision to go the route they did, and that causes the distrust and the loss of confidence in media, in my opinion.
And I just wanted to add one more thing on this because I had started talking about this earlier, and I'll make this quick. So the police officer that was quote unquote off duty, that was shot and killed by this maniac, was in his NYPD uniform. Now, why, you might ask? So the NYPD in New York City has a program where if a private business needs security and they want police protection, they can pay New York City through this program to have a uniformed police officer who is technically not on duty, right? He's still getting paid, but through this private backdoor channel. But they get a uniformed police officer with a badge, a gun, and everything else. And the police officer is legally indemnified if he has to take legal action. Now, that is instead of New York City and the NYPD hiring more police officers or paying overtime to cops on duty, right? You tell me what's wrong with New York City after you hear that.
It's a great point. It's New York City, for lack of better words, a rent-a-cop program is what it is.
It's a shame. What are you paying taxes for, right? Why are those businesses paying astronomical real estate taxes and all other kinds of taxes when they have to pay for police protection, and then this still happens and it takes the cops forever to get there?
It's unreal is what it is. It's the privileged nature of the People's Republic of New York City. I want to transition now because we have a couple of other topics we want to get to, and I don't mean transitioning personally. I want to transition to topic, guys. I had to say the joke before Galloway got to it.
Gene's got Crocs on under that desk. I'm just warning you.
There are no. I categorically deny that accusation. The Croc obsession in my family is limited to one, and we're working on it. One of the big stories dominating the news cycle has been the canceling by CBS of Steven Colbert's show, a show that was once started by David Letterman and meant to compete with The Tonight Show. In bygone eras, late-night comedy shows were pretty hot. there was a movie made about the battle to get the Tonight Show between Jay Leno and David Letterman, and it was pretty damn entertaining. And Jay Leno and David Letterman and the late shows after them, Conan O'Brien and others, were pretty entertaining for their time. Now, where you have social media and outlets like this, where you're watching right now, competing for your eyeballs, it feels like it's a bygone era now, the era of the late night show, and they're not making a lot of money. And Stephen Colbert's show, which, by the way, like many others out there, turned to political positioning and their own inherent biases that come along with that, he found his show losing $40 million, and therefore CBS, in what I would say curious timing, right after settling a lawsuit with Donald Trump over some other fake news, made the fiscal decision, according to them, to cancel Stephen Colbert. Now, I can't imagine why anyone would want to cancel a show with scenes like this.
Scene.
Now, I'm not going to play the music because we get stricken or something like that, because they don't like it when you play copywritten music. But who in their right mind would not want to watch a show that does this? Come on, this is the peak stupidity from the early 2000s.
This wasn't even the early 2000s. This was 2021. Like, this guy was bought and paid for government, apparatus. He was telling you to take an experimental vaccine or you're going to kill grandma. He was part of the government propaganda, right? And now that government or that administration is gone, and CBS was getting tired of losing $50 million a year because he has no real viewers, and he got axed.
Yeah. And apparently people want to create narratives out of this because Stephen Colbert wants to create narratives out of this. He is very resentful about the cancellation of his show, and he wanted to keep on losing money. And people, I guess, responded to go protest what happened to Stephen Colbert. My goodness, the protesters lined up outside, dozens of them.
Colbert drawing less than 24 people yesterday afternoon in New York City. Organizers say that
less than 24 protests. Is this even a protest?
Astonishing, Gene. And by the way, you mentioned your early 2000s humor. Remember when Will Ferrell used to pretend to be George Bush Jr. and
funny as hell?
Very funny, right? Everybody knows Will Ferrell is left of center. And to be honest with you, Stephen Colbert, I used to be a fan. When he was on Comedy Central, he pretended to be a conservative. He modeled himself after Bill O'Reilly on Fox News, but he made fun of conservatives. But it was funny. It was good-natured, funny. Conservatives, we can laugh at ourselves, right? He used to point things out and just make it funny. Fast forward to his new show, he went off the deep end. He doesn't even have I just saw earlier today on Jesse Waters' show, since 2022, he's had one Republican on his show. Everyone else was Democrat. You know who the one Republican was? Liz Cheney, right? So he went off the deep end.
I would thank you not to mention any competition on the show here, pal. But anyways, so yeah, half a dozen protesters, maybe 24 protesters show up, and you mentioned, a bygone era and when things were funny on both sides of the aisle. I remember, Jay Leno, maybe not your cup of tea of humor, but he knew to make fun of both sides. And he was actually mentioning the story on the network I will not name here because I don't name the competition, and talking about how you can be funny and you can be political, but you need to remember that the audience can all laugh together.
the protest was supposed to be a nationwide call for integrity after the Late Show was canceled. It comes as former Tonight Show host Jay Leno criticized fellow late night comedians for alienating half their audience with politics.
I like to think that people come to a comedy show to kind of get away from the things, the pressures of life, whatever it might be. And I love political humor, don't get me wrong, but it's just what happens is people wind up cozying too much to one side or the other. Why?
And that's what normally happens. You'll see a comedian sort of see where the joke lands and sort of lean that direction. But if you're on a national late night show that is meant to promote your guests, their projects, their works, it seems to me like the right thing to do would be to try to remain in the middle, insult everybody, and that way everybody gets to laugh and take the piss out of the other side, and you all handle it that way. I don't understand why the left doesn't like money. Why don't they? Money is green. Michael Jordan once said, Republicans buy shoes too. They buy Nikes too. What happened in the brains of these late night hosts that they feel like they need to take a stand on a political point one way or another?
Yeah, and I mean they're mentally ill, right? Because you can make fun of both sides. When Donald Trump won, I'll say all three times, but both, especially in 2016 and 2024. We'll leave 2020 out of this one for now. But when Donald Trump won those two elections, instead of just making fun of Donald Trump, which is actually very easy to do, right? Our side does it too. He's just a funny dude. You can make fun of him. Guys like Colbert and others came on TV and were genuinely sad. Some of them cried, if I remember correctly, angry and bitter when Donald Trump won. And that's not what a late night comedy show is about. There was so much material you can make fun of Donald Trump and Republicans on that would genuinely be funny. But instead they showed that hand, right? And that was just the wrong way to go. And they've never corrected since. They are truly mentally ill. And Trump did this to them, I think.
He broke them. Is that what you're saying? He broke them.
He completely broke them. There's no going back for them, right? They used to hide it and pretend to be middle of the road or pretend to make fun of both sides, even though it was always clear that one side was getting, the shorter end of the stick. But now they don't even pretend anymore, right? Like, when was the last time you seen Saturday Night Live make fun of Nancy Pelosi or Joe Biden? Like, it just doesn't, or Kamala Harris, right? It's always like a good-natured ribbing, but then with Donald Trump, he's a Nazi or a fascist, right? Like, it's just insane.
Yeah, Corn Pop is absolutely. How is a show like The View still on the air?
Are they still on the air?
I mean, I think that I have a theory that The View is still on the air so that I can make clips about The View and we can all point and laugh and mock them. That's why
I think their days are numbered.
And I truly don't know who their audience is. Who's their audience?
I can't figure it out. I know I don't really hang out with many liberals, but even liberals, like when you talk to one of them, they don't watch it. Or do they? And they're just scared to say it? Like, who's watching that?
I don't know. And I think maybe the answer lies in looking at the protests that were going, the gathering of people outside of Colbert's studio to see the type of people that he's attracting here.
And I think that is disgusting when we can't even depend on the courts to defend our democracy anymore. And that is why we are here today, to be maliciously compliant to our First Amendment right to stand up to this regime. And that's exactly what this is.
Maliciously compliant. Now, I know those are two words in English, but when put together, I don't know what the fuck that means. Are you maliciously compliant to anything?
Bro, what's even better, though, is like no matter what happens, they think Donald Trump did it, right? Like they don't realize like the president of CBS actually has been talking very recently about trying to get back to the center and trying to attract a larger audience. And it's been public information that Colbert's show is losing money. They have like $100 million budget. He gets paid an obscene amount of money and he has no viewers. But somehow Donald Trump did this? Like, okay, cool. Like if you guys, if everything that goes wrong in your life, you think Donald Trump is behind him and you need help, right? Like not us, you actually need help.
And of course, he's pointing to the timing of the settlement with Paramount, I believe, and Trump, based upon the selective editing of the Kamala Harris interview by 60 Minutes, where they end up Kamala Harris found better than she actually did. So, you know what? If that's what's going on, and Quanpot's saying, advanced TDS, if that's the deal, give me a moment. There it is. So, if that's what it is, then Paramount is correct for trying to go back to a model where they focus on making money rather than making policy.
Do me a favor, Gene. Just pop up Corn Pop's comment right before that one, because I think that was a good one. I was actually going to go here, but I was afraid our audience wouldn't want to go down the rabbit hole with me. I think Corn Pop's onto something here, to be honest. Ever since USAID lost a bunch of discretionary spending, a lot of left-wing causes are suddenly disappearing. Now, I can't connect the dots officially. I haven't been able to do the research. I don't have access to the information. But to me, that's a bigger coincidence than Donald Trump did it, right? If he did do it, it was through cutting or pushing Republicans in Congress to cut USAID funding, which, for all intents and purposes, is a massive money laundering scheme to get taxpayer money into the hands of left-wing causes worldwide. Right now, all of a sudden that this funding has dried up, and in a capitalist system, you have to actually have viewers and sell advertising and make money. A lot of these things are disappearing, and I wonder why. Excellent post there, Corn Pop.
All right. By the way, for those of you on YouTube, there is a ranking system that they've instituted now for commenters. So the more you comment, the higher up the ranking you go. For some reason, Galloway is ranked 1 right now, and I don't like it. Someone knock him off the throne. We're going to take a break from the action here to do the grift, the mid-show grift here. So I want to say, hey, guys, thanks for watching Behind Enemy Lines, wherever you're watching, on YouTube, on Rumble, on X. I'm Gene. He's Ross. And wherever you are, please like, share, subscribe, all that really good stuff. Got a nice crowd here hanging out with us across platforms. I really appreciate you tuning into us. You have so many different places you can go, yet you choose to look at these two Yakirons from New York. I don't know why, but I thank you for doing it. And speaking of yakking and being from New York, and no, I'm not going there, pal.
Oh, I got nervous.
No. I've learned lessons in my old age, and while I love my friends, I also know when to take a moment.
You got to know when to hold them.
Yes, know when to hold them, and know when to block them too. I want to talk about our new sponsor, Freedom Chat. If you were on Freedom Chat this past week, you would have seen all the stuff that we've been doing here in advance of everybody else out there. But here's what you missed, guys. You missed some behind-the-scenes clips from our shows like Behind Enemy Lines and Buffoonology 101. You missed early releases of a short video that we did that got over 4,000 views across platforms. And you missed just the camaraderie of being in Freedom Chat. And you missed joining the next generation in messaging apps that keeps your conversations actually private. There's no tracking, there's no screenshotting, and there's no linked devices. Ross, I started the conversation with some friends on Freedom Chat, created a group chat for purposes of talking business about, giving tips on radio shows and things, whatever, things that we're doing. And let me tell you something. The options I had about unsending messages, self-destructing messages after a certain amount of time, blocking screenshotting so that anything that we're saying I know is confidential, it gave some good peace of mind to me in talking and being candid with my friends.
Yeah, and we left out one of the most important parts. Not only can you speak freely, it's free, right? I didn't pay anything to get on there, and for those of you guys that it might be beneficial for, like Gene was saying, you can drop a pic in that group and set it to self-destruct. So if it's inappropriate, it only lasts a little bit of time and it'll be gone, like it never happened.
Absolutely.
Not saying I've had to use that feature yet, but it's good to know it's out there.
Let's talk about the privacy and security. There are no linked devices. So unlike other messaging apps, that have been targeted by, malicious users out there and phishing attempts. That doesn't happen on Freedom Chat. They eliminate this entirely by refusing to support device linking. So that means that your information is your information. And by the way, here's the information on the end-to-end encryption. You can go to their website, freedomchat.com/privacy, to learn all about that. There's a whole lot of information out there, and there are a lot of malicious people out there that are looking to sell your information. They surveil you, and they try to make money off your personal information. Freedom Chat won't do that, and that's why I think you should pick them. Freedomchat.com, the app is available for iPhone and Android. Really cool people, pal.
I love it. Like I said, it's free. So.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Getting back on topic real quick. These late night hosts, they don't learn. They don't freaking learn at all. They haven't learned a lesson. If anything, they've doubled down about what happened with Steven Colbert. We've seen them banding together in media saying that, this is politically motivated, this is malicious, this is just wrong. And one of the clips I found recently is from Seth Meyers, as I'm looking at the chat and what you wrote, you son of a bitch. Anyways, let's get to this clip from Seth Meyers as I get into the chat to defend my honor.
I just want to pause to say this is a comedy show, and I know a lot of people are going to say, why are you talking about this? Just make jokes, and we try every day. We try. But we're also human beings, and we're appalled by the unspeakable horrors currently unfolding in Gaza, and our government is complicit, which is why we have a duty as Americans to speak out on a horrific crisis that has been foreseeable for a long time, as Senator Bernie Sanders explained months ago.
Shut up and tell me a joke. I don't need this shit from my late night viewing. If I wanted to watch a news show, a news opinion show, I would have found a news opinion show. Shut up and entertain me, Seth, or are you incapable of doing that?
Yeah, and where was this same monologue when Joe Biden was president, right? When we were funding the Ukrainian war, and I don't know, maybe he forgot October 7th happened under Joe Biden's watch, and that's when this war actually started in Israel and Gaza. Where was this clip then, right? It's just TDS, clear, naked.
Good question. Let's continue on. He keeps going, believe it or not.
If even Trump is forced to acknowledge the reality of the crisis, that means it is long past time to act and end the suffering.
Okay. I appreciate the humanitarian message that you want to do here, but again, time and place. You got X, you got Blue Sky, you got whatever app you want to go to. What the hell, man? Do your job on your show. Don't take the platform that you've been given for a specific purpose and turn it into something that will turn away viewers and money. I can't wait to find out what type of operating loss his late show on NBC networks is doing right now. Who's subsidizing Seth Meyers right now? That I can't wait for that to come out.
Yeah, and I mean, lover or hater, I hate her. Jane Fonda back in the Vietnam War, put her money where her mouth was, right? Even though she was wrong and she probably committed treason, she went to Vietnam and made stupid videos and protested the war going on there. How come the modern day leftists never go there, right? They always talk about ending the suffering. Okay, well, why don't you go there, show us what's going on the ground, and raise awareness and raise money, right? But they never do that anymore, right? Because they're cowards and they're full of shit.
Coffee Grinder has a joke for us. I'm waiting for the answer. What do you get when you cross a rooster and GTE telephone pole? I guess we'll leave that hanging until he tells us in the chat. But waiting with bated breath on that one, by the way, Coffee Grinder. I want to know. But he wants to talk about what the reality on the ground is in Gaza. And I assume that Seth Meyers' view is predicated on what he sees in his preferred media, which I would also assume would include the New York Times. Now, there was a story in the New York Times last Friday, and let me put it up on the screen right now here. This is from therap.com. And I'm going to show you the headline after we go to the story here. Oh, wait. Yeah, we have the answer to the joke first. Before we do that, bravo. I'm not reading it. I'm leaving it on the screen. Bravo.
I'm going to guess Coffee Grinder is a dad.
I'm going to guess that Coffee Grinder is enjoying a little bit of Crown while watching us. Not that that's a bad thing, just pointing it out. So let me get back on track here. What a joke. Well, I'm using that joke. I love dad jokes. I am a dad joke maven. So this is from a screenshot of the front page of the New York Times from July 25th, last Friday, as we're taping this show. And look at this photo. This is a photo that was taken in Gaza. And for those of you who can't see it right now, maybe you're listening to the show. It's a view of a woman holding a child, and the child is not facing the camera, but his torso, his back is exposed, not wearing a shirt, and you're able to see his spine through his skin. This photo was included in a story from the New York Times talking about the dire situation in Gaza concerning starvation. And clearly, you look at the photo and you infer, oh my God, this poor child is starving. He's having, he's not getting food. Look, his bones are poking through. But it turns out, and here's the headline from TheWrap.com, New York Times corrects story on starving Gazan boy, says he suffered pre-existing health problems. So this image of this boy, whose name is Mohammed Zakaria al-Mutawak, showed his spine protruding and was being intentionally starved. We'll get to who's doing the intentional starving later. But again, there's the photo. And the New York Times issued a correction for this story that featured this photo. Let's talk about what the correction said, and I'll let you get into it, pal. At the bottom of the story, the Times added the following editor's note this Tuesday, which, as we're taping this, is yesterday. Quote, this article has been updated to include information about Mohammed Zakaria al-Mutawak, a child in Gaza suffering from severe malnutrition. After publication of the article, the Times learned from his doctor that Mohammed also had pre-existing health problems. The updated story added that al-Mutawak suffered from pre-existing health problems affecting his brain and his muscle development, stating further that his health had deteriorated rapidly in recent months. Fake news? What do you think, pal?
I mean, clearly fake news, right? That picture is terrible, and I do feel terrible for that child, right? I don't want to see,
of course,
any child suffer. But when we talk about suffering, right, like this whole conflict, like put that fake photo aside for a second. The whole conflict could really have ended before it even started, right? October 7th, Hamas attacked Israel, kidnapped civilians, and raped, tortured, and is still holding some of them hostage, right? So why haven't they released those hostages yet? And I'm not one of these guys that thinks that Israel can do no wrong, right? I'm not like the pom-pom cheerleader for Israel. I definitely don't want to see the United States get entangled in any more Middle Eastern wars that really have no interest of the United States at the heart of them, right? So with that said, yeah, we want to end the suffering, release the hostages, right? Where are the other Middle Eastern countries, the other Arab countries, the other Muslim countries? None of them are coming to the aid of Hamas or the Gazans, right? They're not taking them into their own countries. They're not mobilizing their troops to go fight against Israel, right? So like the only people who are really getting it completely wrong, other than Hamas, I'm not going to say all Gazans, I'm saying Hamas, the only other people that are getting it completely wrong as a group is the American media, right? They're the only other ones that are getting this completely wrong as usual.
And let's talk about that for a moment. I came across this video online. It is from an organization called the Center for Peace Communications. Not exactly what I would call a Republican source, a Democrat source. the name seems to imply that they are committed to peace. They're not committed to any one group of people or any people really suffering. Small account on X, but the video I found is pretty shocking because I've never seen it before. I've never seen coverage like this of people in Gaza actually expressing pro-American and shockingly pro-Trump statements. This apparently is occurring, this video, at, let me see if I can get this right. I'm actually looking at their page at the same time. This is something that legacy media will not tell you. I don't know exactly where this was. This is somewhere in Gaza where there was, I guess, a food drop or some sort of humanitarian aid that America provided in the area, that these people were picking it up there. There's a translation of different statements at the bottom of the screen, so pay attention and watch what happens here. This is amazing.
لا على هوية بتسلم ولا على بصمة العين، كل غزة أخضر، الناس بتاخذ كرتون وثلاثة. بتاعت حماس بدون لك تروحش على الأمريكان، يخلف على الأمريكان هم بدون طحين وأكل. أسامة حمدان في قطر شبعان نايم تحت المكيفات هو ونسوانه وأولاده، بقول لك ما حدش يروح، إحنا بنراهن على إيش؟ على صمود شعبنا. صمود مين يا حبيبي؟ تعال تفرج كيف الناس، تفرج كيف الناس جعانة بتروح. نصيحة من الشعب لحماس، سلموا ورقك وروحوا.
So this person is saying that Hamas is to blame for the conditions in Gaza right now. I have not heard that from any Democrat in America. I've never heard that from any pro-Palestinian person in America, regardless of party. This is astonishing to see, really.
Yeah, because if they admitted the truth, then they would also have to admit that you can't have a two-state solution, right, if Hamas would ever play any role in it, right? And that's basically what Israel has said. The United States has gone back and forth on this. I think Trump pretty much agrees now that you can't have a two-state solution if Hamas still exists, right? But the American media can't get there.
I've been asking for over a year now, probably more than, like almost 2 years now. Is there a separation between Hamas and people in Gaza? And all I've heard from both sides, really, is that there isn't. This is the first evidence I've seen where there is a separation between the people in Gaza and Hamas. And maybe it's because of the situation. But it gets more astonishing as we keep going.
ترامب طعمينه وحماس بتجوع مشهد العالم، حماس اللي بتقول لك مقاوم وسلاح وشعبنا صامت، صارت كيف الناس كل قطاع غزة بروح عند الامريكان عشان يطعموهم، يخلف على ترامب. ثانك يو ترامب.
Bless Trump, thank you Trump. Amazing. Amazing. Why don't we see this on our evening news?
Because they're too busy talking about a possibly white mass shooting suspect in Manhattan.
Exactly.
Right? This
it's
doesn't
narrative.
fit.
It's pushing the narrative. Where's my book? Someone pass me my book. I have my book right here. Schnooks, Crooks, Liars, and Scoundrels, a field guide to identifying political buffoons, available right now on Amazon, at Barnes & Noble, and other online bookstores. And yes, Rick, before you say it, I do have the clip ready.
This guy is a grifter.
We say in the book that the hacks in media like to push their own aesthetic fallacies, their own beautiful narratives. They don't care about the truth. They don't only care about what story they want to push. This video from the Center for Peace Communications is a narrative buster. It's a huge narrative buster. Seeing people in Gaza saying, bless Trump, thank you, Trump. And by the way, it's not just this guy. There'll be others in the video as we continue along here. To see this is a complete narrative buster and exposes an agenda from the media to continually divide people on this topic as they do on other topics. And as Corn Pop says, People's Republic of New York City is about to elect a Hamas sympathizer. So there's a reason for the narrative to push their own agenda for power. And apparently it's working in New York City.
Yeah, and I think the better question for New York City and all these college protests / rioters is, do they even know that? I know Corn Pop mentioned you can't find it on a map, most of them, Gaza, that is. But do they even understand what Hamas is versus what a Gazan is versus what they claim a Palestinian is, right? I don't think they're educated enough to not only not be able to find it on a map, but they have no clue that Hamas is a terrorist organization supported by Iran and the funding that they provide them, as long with weapons, right? And you can't have, by the way, Gazans did elect Hamas if you believe their election was fair. I hate throwing stones at other countries' elections as not being, fair, when I don't believe our own are fair most of the time, right? But if you believe that election was fair, then they elected Hamas as their leaders, right? So can you have a separation? I don't know. When they had the chance to elect a government, if you believe the election was fair, they elected Hamas.
Right. It was an election held over 10 years ago. I don't even know. It was a pretty long time ago. And there haven't been elections held since. So I'm inclined to allow people a little bit of grace for one stupid choice made over a decade ago, if they are truly seeing the light. I don't know if they are or not. This video seems to indicate, and again, this seems to be one or two people speaking here. Let's continue on with the video.
اللي بطعميني هذا يخلف عدينه احسن ما واحد يجي من دعم حماس دعم قطر يقول لي ايش خليك في دارك وما تشاركوش الاسرائيليين الامريكيين في هذا المشروع لا بدنا نشاركهم بدنا ناكل تعال طعميني وبديش اروح على الامريكان بس تعال طعميني ما تضلكش صامت في قطر وانت نايم ومكيف بقول اسامه حمدان بقول حسبي الله فيك وفي اولادك كمان وان شاء الله تذوق اللي ذقناه احنا بنقول حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل في حماس ان شاء الله تذوق اللي ذقناه ايش تقول لأسامة حمدان؟ ايش بقول لأسامة حمدان؟ تعال اقعد عندنا فاوض معنا جوع معنا موت معنا ايش بدنا نقول له هو وابنه والنونو وكل القيادات حسب الله ونعم الوكيل الله يجعلهم يذوقوا اللي ذقناه احكينا
It's more than one person. I'm seeing that now. Astonishing. This needs to be on every news network. But it won't be.
Yeah.
Because again, the news business wants ratings, and what stirs ratings? Anger. So if you keep putting out this aesthetic fallacy of division, and you keep pushing that agenda, and if politicians keep falling for that agenda and perpetuate everything going forward, and if other politicians use that agenda to gain their own personal power, a video like this will never make it into mainstream media because there are way too many fingers and way too many pots that have an interest in keeping this away from the American consciousness.
Yeah, man. I mean, watching these videos is hard, right? You see these guys, I'm assuming their fathers and their families are starving, and it's rough. And I want to believe them, right? I really want to believe them. And if they truly want to cooperate, they truly should cooperate with the Israelis in this instance, right? Tell the Israelis where Hamas is hiding. Tell the Israelis where the weapon caches are. Tell them where the hostages are. Pick up arms and fight and kill Hamas, right? But they're not doing that for the most part, right? Maybe they are, and we're not being told about it. But I just find it hard to believe because in every Middle Eastern country where there is immense suffering from dictatorships and rogue regimes, right? Eventually we find videos like this, but those men should have stood up and still can and fight their oppressors, right? But we don't see much of that. So I do feel bad for them, but man up, guys. It's time to take your country back.
And I agree with the sentiment. If you've been pushed to the point of starvation, what is it going to take for you to take control of your own life, take control of your own personal responsibility, and fight for your own freedom? Absolutely 100% agree with that. And yes, actions mean a lot more than words. But the words are a good start. And while I'm sure that many people are saying this because they are getting food from America, and by extension, Donald Trump, I think wanting more food means that they would want to keep Donald Trump on their good side. I certainly understand that. yes, action need to be done here, but just even seeing something like this in a country that is so deeply divided between this question about Israel and all that, I really believe that if people saw this, it would be a good first step for America to say, okay, there are people there who are pro-American and would be more willing to step in to support them.
Yeah, and I hope they take this as a teachable moment, man, because they have been being used for decades as a proxy against the Israelis, the Jews, and the Americans, really. But no one's coming to help them except the Americans, and like it or not, the Israelis are probably feeding more people in Gaza right now than any of the Hamas leadership and any other Middle Eastern Arab/Muslim country. Right, so stop being used as a proxy to fight them and man up.
Absolutely. All right, we've done a lot of talking, pal, about the media and basically how, man, I just can't freaking stand them. I can't stand these people out there. We're out here doing a show. We've been doing this for a good long while, and we've gained a lot of traction. We have a lot of new viewers. We have thousands of subscribers. And then I see these privileged hacks who have this amazing power in their hand, and they squander it away. It's absolutely disgusting to me. Yeah,
man. I'm tired, actually. This week drained me a little bit, to be honest.
Yeah, well, not just that, the heat. My God. It's hot up here in the People's Republic of New York. I got the air conditioning on. It's probably screwing with my microphone. Who the hell cares? I'm nice and comfortable. But it's time for some final thoughts, pal. Part of the show now where Ross and I, we don't tell each other what we're going to say. We have a topic that we want to raise and just bring up. And you want to go first, or you want me to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Go ahead.
All right. So my final thought, man, rest in peace to a truly great American, none other than Hulk Hogan, a real American, right? He really made wrestling great. He waved the American flag with pride. In the early 80s, he beat the Iron Sheik, and that was like right after the Iranian embassy where they took hostages and Jimmy Carter's debacle, right? Part of his comments always were, say your prayers and eat your vitamins. If you grew up in the 80s or even the 90s, to be honest, he was part of your childhood. I know he was part of mine, and losing him last week truly hurt. And I love you, brother. Rest in peace, Hulk Hogan.
I wholeheartedly endorse that message. Definitely part of my childhood. Still a wrestling fan today because of him. And we lost a good one. I know that there are people out there that will say, "Oh, he said some bad things." My wish to you out there in the audience, and maybe I'm just going to double and piggyback off your message here, pal, is may you never be judged by your worst moment of your life. All of us are fallible. All of us make mistakes. And I don't really think that this generation can acknowledge what Hulk Hogan meant to our generation, pal. He was a beacon of hope right after the fall of Tehran. The rise of Ronald Reagan comes. America had a self-esteem problem in the late 70s and early 80s. The rise of Hulk Hogan came with the rise of America. And the symbolism of that optimism about fighting from underneath, being beat down, coming back, it typified a whole, not only an era of pro wrestling and whatever, we can talk about that, but it also typified the comeback of American exceptionalism. And to me, that's something that can never be underestimated. And like you said, we lost a great one. And rest in peace, brother. That's all I can say to that. We had the same final thought. That was pretty cool.
We're both 80s babies. It hurt. Well, 70s babies that grew up in the 80s.
Yeah, it did hurt. It certainly did hurt. I don't want to talk about it anymore. Whatever. Folks, that about does it for us here behind Enemy Lines. We'll be back next week for a more fun program. Be sure to tune in Thursday if you want to see a on-demand segment of this show. and Friday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time for Buffoonology 101, where Ross Galloway and I will go back head-to-head to pick the Buffoon of the Week. I hope you'll join us for that. In the words of Coffee Grinder, all be safe. Have a great weekend. See you next round. Thank you so much for tuning in Behind Enemy Lines. I'm Gene. He's Ross. We are out of here. Now play our motherfucking anthem. Stay in the chat. We'll be having a little fun during the song, guys. Take care. God bless. Good night.
Not allowed, not without electro.
Go fuck yourself. Is that clear?
Teeth, don't let them have sway. Conservative battalions walking them out, marching through the streets while the buffoons all shout. Move in the shadows, flag on my chest, repping my clan, putting faith to the test. Cause we'll play blue behind enemy lines, fighting for the truth, feels like wartime. Don't back down, keep it rugged and raw, cool in the chaos, but loud in the roar. But loud in the war. Thunder, arm in advance. March to the anthem, this is our chance. Defy every stare with a smirk and a gaze. Holding down the fort in this Democrat cage. Whistles in the dark, strategies unfold. Allies unseen, but bonds remain bold. Commitment to the cause in the heart of the storms. In the